Well, it's Thursday, and who doesn't like a good throwback? So let's throw back the iPhone 6S. Wow, this is definitely a phone that is remembered and still used by many. So let's get into this video. Well, back in 2015, Apple came out with probably one of the best phones that they could have announced. This phone has a 4.7-inch display, and we're talking about 2015, so consider that. This hardware on here was a huge upgrade from the iPhone 5S or SE. But this phone right here had a 4.7-inch display, and this was considered huge back then. We're talking about 2015, so we haven't moved that far. But it has a 4.7-inch display. It had that crazy resolution of 750 by 13 cheat sheet, 750 by 1334. And it's got a 1,715 milliamp hour battery inside, a headphone jack, obviously, 12 megapixel camera. And it's still today on the latest operating system. And this is where people start to get their money's worth with Apple. If you can get the phone and keep it in pristine condition this entire time, you win. You win. Now, personally, I'm one of those people that said that once Apple left this design, they left a great thing. While the current designs are nice, it's nothing like having the Touch ID on the front and then the metal design. I don't use wireless charging, so when we shift to this other glass design, who said glass was premium? I don't know. The people that make the rules or the people who are sitting in that room thinking they know what customers want. But this phone right here is actually a fantastic phone to use in 2019. I kid you not. It does everything that the current iPhones do, and it still does it at almost the same level, if you ask me. I mean, first things first, it's just iOS, so it's just icons. And so the performance that you think you might be lacking with, it's really not there. It's the placebo effect. It's all in your head. This phone runs just as fast as any other iPhone that I've ever used, and it still does the same thing. Social media is still good. It's on the latest software. Now, I do believe, speaking of software, I think they're going to stop after this year. 2020, I don't know if this phone is going to get any more updates, but still, just like Android phones, it's still going to work. Even if you don't have the latest operating system, it's still going to work fine. You shouldn't have any issues with it. You should be fine. As long as you have it in some kind of case or something like that, you will be perfectly fine. I guarantee this. You should not have a problem with your iPhone. So Apple was known back in the day for their software, but today they're known for their software updates. But back then, they started something. It's like the iPad, the iPod. They just had a really good thing going, and I think they still do, to be honest. I look at this phone and I think, wow, this is different. This is something that, Android phones just couldn't accomplish. And, with all respect, though, Android phones are great, but they just couldn't accomplish what Apple did with some of their older phones. They continue to update their older phones. And you can now get this phone probably for $99 or free or $29, whatever. And you know what? Sadly, I still recommend this phone if you want stability. Even though, like I said, I think in 2020 it's off the list for updates because I'm sure they're going to have to bump it down and make the 7 the lowest tier or the 8 the lowest tier. But I think that if you can grab one of these, get it. Because the cameras on this thing still are better than plenty of other phones out there that run the Android operating system. I mean, if you look about this was a flagship back in the day. So if you let's compare previous flagships to this old 4-year-old flagship. Is it getting beat up really bad? Probably not. Again, most phones back then had headphone jacks, and they had the fingerprint ID, but none of them was like Apple's phone. We're talking about 4 years ago, folks. 4 years ago. So, I look at this and I think, wow, this was a win. This was a win-win. How could a person go wrong with wanting to use a phone like this? Now, granted, it was expensive back then. Apple's tax, if you will, some people say, it's still it exists today, and it's even worse because they have these glass builds. And I think Apple would do themselves some justice by going back, reevaluating. People do not need wireless charging. That's something that people might want. We don't need wireless charging. People want wireless charging. And I think that's something that, Apple really should reevaluate. Now, if you're going to give us these metal phones or glass phones, give us an option to have an updated current model of a metal phone. Now, there are rumors of an iPhone SE2 for 2020. There's also rumors that they're going to release 3 phones for 2020. We don't know. They're just rumors. And that's pretty much all it is. So with that being said, I think the iPhone SE was one of the best that Apple did. I like the design of the iPhone SE, the iPhone 5S SE. I like that squared off boxy metal design. And it would have been nice when this phone came out, I actually was, hoping that, they stuck with that squared off design, just made a bigger screen. And they didn't. They changed to this design, and that's perfectly fine. But I feel like, Apple, well, not just Apple, sometimes companies mess up by trying to do too much or trying to keep up with other OEMs and other devices on the market. So, Apple's no exception. I think they did that once they left this design. The iPhone 7 and 7 Plus was the end of this era. And that, still have a 7 too, and a 7 Plus. But when sometimes when you move about, you're not doing it right, and I think Apple should give us another metal device. I think it would sell way better than what they think it would. And in this app, some people might say, "Well, it's Apple." So you're right, though. I gotta admit, you're right. It will sell, just because of the name Apple. That's just gonna sell it. So. This phone right here is fantastic, and if you can get one, you're not going to get the cameras to match the current iPhone cameras, but you're still going to get cameras that can beat out a lot of phones on the market, if you want to compare it that way. And one thing is consistent, you're going to get the software updates that you deserve. People who kept their iPhones for these long periods of times, we then reap the benefits of the company. But for me, I don't, because I have so many phones. But if I was just a regular consumer and I had my phone, I kept it in an outer box and I just kept it really pristine condition, then I reap the rewards. After the first 2 years, I'm reaping the rewards, especially if my phone still works. And I'm just getting the most out of it, and I'm not feeling the urge to go and upgrade. And that is the best thing about iOS. You really don't need to upgrade. Some people will tell you need to upgrade, you gotta have the better cameras. No, you don't need to upgrade. This is a phone that you can not just give to a child, adults. There's people out there that still use the iPhone 4S, man. I've seen it. And, it looks so tiny, it's weird, but Palm phone 3.3, I don't know. This is a matter of preference. Could you use this for the next year to make it a 5-year longevity phone? I could if I had to. You never know what you'll have to do or what you could do unless you had to. So the iPhone 6S, man, to me was, once the 7 hit, once we left that era, I didn't lose interest, but I just felt like the metal bodies, and it's not just dealing with Apple, I just feel like phones that have the metal design are much better. I think if you drop it, obviously it's just going to dent it or scratch it a little bit. It won't just shatter on the first drop. That's just how I feel about it. But in the end, you have to make a choice on what you consider a good throwback. And I think this is a great representation of a throwback device that is still relevant today because companies are still selling them. That's the crazy part. People are still selling this phone. So that's saying something about Apple's quality. I don't know. It's your man Jay. I hope you guys enjoy, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.